Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening. First, I wanted to cover a couple comments that I may have left in your assignment 3 paper. Whenever I say maintain professional tone, that means that the phrase that you've written isn't formal enough for a grant proposal. Examples of this include using the first person, avoiding passive voice, and anytime I read something that I think, is this really the best way to say this? Or is there a more formal way? I also noted on multiple students' papers that I'm relaxing my policy on APA formatting for this paper because many folks submitted based off the template provided. For the final proposal, please make sure you use correct formatting for heading and subheadings, with an exception for the tables. This week, you will be learning about how to effectively lead and manage a human service organization. This is actually my favorite topic that we cover. As a director of a smaller nonprofit organization, I can say that for me, the benefits certainly outweigh the challenges of managing personnel. When filling vacancies at my organization, I first looked at hiring former coworkers, folks who I already had a proven track record with and whom I could trust. Now that the organization has been operating for 5 years or so, we've been able to hire outside of the initial circle and promote people from within. Finding the right people is key and is especially important in smaller organizations where every dollar counts. Every time our budget changes significantly, we strategically restructure positions, and recently that has meant that we restructure the hierarchy within staff and introduce new positions. Brody and Nair, Chapter 6, page 135, includes an eye-catching section about avoiding supervision mistakes. While these seem very obvious, can you think of bosses or supervisors who have made these? I sure can. I'm looking at two in particular. Do not play favorites and do not encourage cliques that I need to work on. As I mentioned, we started the organization drawing from some of my former coworkers, and now we essentially have two cohorts forming, one from newer relationships and one with deeper roots. I'm now in a place where I have to be very intentional with my interactions and treat both groups fairly. Besides focusing on relationships, a fair assessment method to evaluate staff performance is imperative. Check out various appraisal types beginning on page 144, such as the graphic rating scale, behaviorally anchored rating scale, and management by objectives. Brody and Nair, chapter 9, is a fun chapter to read, especially if your internship or workplace has unproductive meetings. They provide guidelines on how to lead meetings, suggestions on how to brainstorm, and suggestions on how to stimulate creative thinking. The last chapter I'll mention is chapter 11, Team Building and Coalition Building. My training as a clinical social worker has really primed me for responding to conflict among staff. And honestly, the most important advice on this is written on page 223. The key to managing conflict is to encourage people to debate their ideas, to have strong differences of opinion, and at the same time, to maintain a high level of civility. In addition to creating safe spaces for opinion sharing, we provide opportunities outside of work hours to strengthen relationships. Some of these events naturally form, such as happy hours, and some are planned. For example, this summer our coaches are taking a road trip to the Western and Southern Open in Cincinnati, many of whom will be watching professional tennis for the first time. Okay, I lied. I need to briefly mention Chapter 12, Working with a Board of Trustees. Brody and Nair share helpful information about board governance and what constitutes board responsibilities. Basically, a board should be concerned with policy and strategy, and the programming domain tasked to organizational staff. In practice, your board needs to be your best friend. If you're the ED, they hire you, they fire you, and they govern you. Their level of fundraising engagement often dictates the organization's long-term viability, and ultimately, they carry fiduciary responsibility for the organization. It's worth the read. The weekly discussion forum post is due this Thursday. and the response post is due this Sunday. You are not assigned a response post partner for this week or next week. The final proposal, assignment 4, is due by midnight this Sunday as well. Please note that the sections are in a different order than how you submitted each assignment. The order is as follows: statement of need, goals and objectives, logic model, program description, budget, budget narrative, and program evaluation. A classmate posed a question about APA format for the final proposal. You can leave the program table and budget in template format, but all else should be in APA. This week, the course evaluation survey opens, so please let us know what you thought. Results won't be available for me to view until 2 weeks after grades are submitted, and your responses will be anonymous. Next week is our last week, and we will be covering what it means to be a trauma-informed organization, so stay tuned and I'll see you next week.